Hello there, it's Tania Gabrielle, Wealth Astro-Numerologist. Welcome to Star Codes. This is the podcast where we look at an upcoming event in the stars and numbers, the astrology and numerology. And in this case, it's actually 3 events we're looking at that are all combined and making this an incredibly potent week and second half of the month in March that will really be seen as a shift in the year of 2025, but also overall a shift for the ages that truly is felt more than ever at this point. So what we're going to focus on first is Mercury stationing retrograde at 9 degrees Aries, and I'll tell you why that is such an important degree. And then we will look at the equinox that happens just days later on March 20th at 0 degrees Aries. And then we're going to look at a completely different topic that is actually tied in to the Aquarian age that we're moving into now. And that is the end of the current Yuga cycle, which is part of the Vedic ancient Indian way of looking at major epic cycles such as the Aquarian age. So we're coming to the end of an age as well in that calendar. So let's get started first of all with Mercury retrograde. Now it happens at 9 degrees Aries in just a few hours from when I'm recording this on the 15th of March. And 9 degrees Aries is so important because the solar eclipse, the second eclipse of our current eclipse cycle, takes place at 9 degrees Aries on March 29th, and Venus stationed retrograde at 10 degrees Aries. So we have the number 9 and the number 10. 9 is the final single digit, 10 begins the double digits and reduces to 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. So it's beginnings 1 and endings. And it mirrors all of 2025, as you know. I've talked about this in almost every forecast where we have a 9 universal year in numerology coupled with new beginnings with all the slow moving planets from Jupiter to Pluto moving into new signs, 0 degrees of new signs. Pluto began in the end of November, and we have upcoming Neptune on March 30th, etc., all the way through July 7th when Uranus moves into 0 degrees Gemini. And I'll speak a little bit more to that a bit later on in this forecast so we can tie it all together. So Mercury retrograde begins at 9 degrees Aries. It's really forecasting again the next eclipse, which is a solar eclipse in the first sign of the zodiac, and solar is new moon. So we're really looking at a lot of new beginnings and endings numbers and astrological events. And that indicates a shift. When you move from 9 to 1 in numerology, or from 29 degrees of a sign to 0 degrees in astrology, it's endings and new beginnings. And all of that is taking place and is being mirrored in other events, such as the beginning of the 2 retrogrades, Venus and Mercury, which are now concurrent for 3 weeks between March 15th and April 7th. Both Mercury and Venus will be in retrograde. Aries is the trailblazer sign of forward momentum, and Pisces is the inspirational sign of going beyond where we have been. It literally is galactic. So it's like the ending of something that then takes you to another realm is Pisces, and Aries is, well, let's get started at the beginning and birth something. So Aries begins spring in the Northern Hemisphere, which is the first season of the year where the shoots come up and we have new life again. And so this equinox that's coming up also celebrates Aries and celebrates spring. And so we are springing into a new season anyways, which is incredible and important when you look at all the other factors, meaning that both Mercury and Venus stationed retrograde at the beginning of Aries at the same time. And they're going to be journeying together through Aries, going backwards now into Pisces together. So there's like this marriage of Mercury and Venus at this time when there is this launching of so much new energy. Remember that Neptune also moves into Aries on the 30th of March, right after that solar eclipse, literally hours after the solar eclipse in Aries. So Aries is the trailblazer, forward momentum, courageous, ambitious. And when Mercury enters Aries in any capacity, whether it's retrograde or not, communication is more direct, more candid. It's less broad in a way. So it's not like looking at a lot of options and sitting on things. It's literally like moving into a space where communication is just really understood clearly. So when there's a retrograde with Mercury in Aries, you want to not rush into action. You want to take time to implement your ideas. You want to map them out and maybe sit on or meditate on the consequences of each idea or plan and the course of action that you might take. So it's like taking deep breaths, which Aries doesn't really like to do, before sharing your observations, whether it's via email, text, talking, whatever the case may be. So pause a moment on what you're about to say or write, and that's going to make a big difference during this time. Focus on patience in all things communication, especially when you feel extra passionate about the topic and might get into a reactionary state because of that, because you're so excited to just share something. So always take that deep breath. Guard against engaging in any conflicts, anything that is like irritable energy or frustrating energy. You want to use this productively. It's actually very productive energy when Mercury stations retrograde in Aries, because it gives you that extra space to then implement your ideas in a really wise way and a courageous way. And if you get a second chance of something, take that initiative too. That's what retrogrades are for. And any ideas that you have about forward momentum or abundance, you can meditate on those now. You can refine them now and then move forward with implementation from mid-April, late April onwards. Now, the second event is the Equinox on March 20th at 9:02 a.m. Universal Time. That's 5:02 a.m. Eastern, 2:02 a.m. Pacific. And that number 2, so 9:02, 5:02, 2:02, wherever you live, there's 2 after the hour, is fascinating too. We are in the 2000s. We are in the 2020s, which is the most important decade of the 2000s. And we're in the middle of that decade now, which makes it so potent. And we have the equinox, which is when day and night are the same length. And so day and night represent the dark and light. So again, it's 2, it's the duality. And it's a reminder of growth and renewal, and that anything is possible. That's how it feels, no matter where you are in your journey. And here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming into spring, which is always so exciting. Now, no matter where you live on Earth, this equinox, the vernal equinox on March 20th, marks the beginning of the astrological year, because we're at 0 degrees Aries, the first sign. And the other thing about that number 20 is that 2 represents balance. So it's an actual symbol of equal day, equal night, representing both sides of the coin. And 0 degrees Aries represents hovering at the 0 point between 2 worlds, right? So the seen and the unseen, the above and below. So both the astrology and numerology combine beautifully to activate this profound message of harmony at the moment that a new cycle is born. In this case, the 0 degrees Aries equinox. Now, one other thing that I always check at this time of year during the equinox is, where's the sun? What kind of aspects does the sun make? It's like the birth of the year astrologically. And this year is so incredible. The sun makes 5 beautiful aspects at the moment of the equinox. The sun is conjunct Neptune, because Neptune's now at the very end of Pisces, 29 degrees, like literally almost at 0 degrees Aries where the sun is. So that's really powerful and indicates incredible spiritual growth. The sun is conjunct Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. Venus is at that point at 4 degrees Aries, Mercury at 7 degrees Aries. They're all bunched together in this incredible stellium with the sun and Neptune, 4 planets, or the sun is a star, 3 planets and the sun. And they're all 3 trine to the moon, the most harmonious aspect in astrology. So we have the sun, Neptune, Venus, and Mercury all trine to the moon. How exciting is that? The moon's at 6 degrees Leo, another fire sign. And then they're all, the sun included, are sextile to Pluto, which is at 3 degrees Aquarius. So that indicates empowerment and transformation. And there's so much courage, spirituality, joy, love, communication, connection, and heart-centered compassion in all of these planetary alignments to the sun. So it's really auspicious, and it gets even more auspicious, as you will see. So we've arrived now at a very important moment in the planetary and human evolution. We have incredible opportunities now to make conscious choices and huge leaps. And that's also because a Yuga cycle is ending on March 21st, which is literally hours from March 20th, obviously. So I would call it the same time in March, really. So next week. So the equinox is connected to major seasonal change at the beginning of Aries, which this year is enhanced by the solar eclipse in Aries, Neptune moving into Aries after about 156 years, Saturn moving into Aries. This is all happening at the same time. So you're feeling this now. But the Yuga cycles are like ages, like the Aquarian age, which is 2,150 years. Yuga cycles are thousands of years long sometimes, and they date back to ancient India. It's a Vedic system, and based on the ancient Vedic texts, every few thousand years the earth changes cycles. So you may actually already be aware of this, some of you, that we are now at the end of a very long Kali Yuga cycle, which began in 676 before Christ, BC. That one was preceded by another Kali Yuga cycle. And so it's been a long time that we've been in Kali Yuga cycles, because the other one began in 3676 BC. They were back to back. So Kali Yuga, of all the yugas that exist, and they range over a long period of time, which I'll get into in a moment. Kali Yuga cycles are the most challenging in so many ways because there's more friction, there's more aggression, there's oppression, there's opposition, there's tension. So it's more like things come to the surface basically in Kali Yuga cycles. You cannot escape if there is internal conflict, right? It just will pour out into external conflict. And it's now been documented by an incredible author. His name, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, so apologies for my pronunciation, Bibu Dev Misra. And he wrote a book where he goes into how he was able to calculate in a complex way the calendrical system that the current Kali Yuga cycle ends on March 21st. And this date he calculated based on Vedic texts and the records of other sacred traditions, which is why it is so incredible, because the other traditions are the Egyptian, the ancient Egyptian, the Persians, the Hopis, the Lakota, the Aztecs, and the Greeks. So he took all of these together. These are now 7 ancient systems, if you look at them, which is the ancient Indian, the Vedic, the Egyptian, the Persian, the Hopis, Lakotas, Aztecs, and Greeks. All of them had similar cycles. And what's incredible about the date of March 21st, 2025, for a cycle that began in 676 BC, is that we are literally in the midst in an astrological unbelievable event where all these slow-moving planets are moving to 0 degrees. And March 30th is the day that Neptune leaves Pisces, the last sign. Neptune rules Pisces. And the ruler of Pisces is moving from its own sign, the final sign of the zodiac, to the first sign of the zodiac. There's incredible change that's happening now. Because when Pluto moved to 0 degrees Aquarius for 20 years last November, the Aquarian age really began in earnest to be felt. And now we're at the point where there's so much coming to a head with these slow-moving planets, which, by the way, just to give you an example of why this event in the astrology, all these slow-moving planets, these outer planets moving to 0 degrees of new signs is so incredible. Well, Neptune and Saturn are both moving into Aries. And this hasn't happened in 12,000 years, that they're both moving into Aries at the same time. And with Jupiter and Uranus also moving into new signs, and of course Pluto, this is an unprecedented event. We don't even know. I don't even know when it last happened. But consider that the Yuga cycle lasts 25,800 years. That's based on Mizra's extensive research. And the precession of the equinoxes has the same 25,800 year cycle. That's a long cycle. Now remember that this ending on March 21st, 2025 of the current Yuga cycle happens right during the equinox. And you look at the precession of the equinox as having the same amount of years as the Yuga cycle, 25,800 years. I just want to throw in here that as a numerologist as well, I love this 25,800 year precession of the equinox cycle because it adds up. 2 plus 5 plus 8 add up to 15. And 15 is the spiritual alchemist, the magician. 15 reduces to 6, the number of love. So it's connected to love and abundance. And so what better frequency to celebrate than the frequency of love, which brings us all together, which is the fabric of the universe. So we're being given now an incredible opportunity to unite as one. All are one energy, to be one with each other, to all join together as a human family and not work anymore with separation mentality, like I'm different, I'm better, you're worse, which is usually how it goes. A way to separate yourself through identifying with something that you feel is creating an image of how you want to project to the world, and it is definitely not based on compassion and love and being in the moment. In the moment, there is no separation. There's just being. Now, it's fascinating to me that the Lakota, which are one of the 7 cultures, societies, people who had the same ancient prophecies lined up with the Vedic Yuga cycle, that they have been awaiting the birth of a white buffalo calf. And that finally happened last year, 2024, in Yellowstone National Park, fulfilling the prophecy of the Lakota. And remember that 2024 is the year that Pluto, the first of the slow-moving planets and the furthest of the slow-moving planets, moved into Aquarius, 0 degrees Aquarius. And 2024 was also the year that the United States had its own Pluto return. Speaking of Pluto, at the same time, since its birth in 1776. And this birth of the prophesied calf, of course, happened in the US, Yellowstone, on June 4th, 2024. So we can take all of these systems, these prophecies, these cycles, and put them together, and they're all indicating a major shift during this time, which I know you realize and feel. So everything's pointing to this being an astonishing time. Well, astrologically, we've looked at the Yuga's changing, we've looked at numerologically. I just want to add that the 2020s are the central decade of the 2000s, which is a 1,000-year event. And that means that as we are in the center of the 2020s, we are literally at the pivot point in the 2000s at this time. And this is why everything has come to the head, especially when you look at how we began the 2020s and what big event happened on January 12th, 2020. If you remember, it was a stellium. It was a 500-year event. Pluto, Saturn, Sun, and Mercury were in a stellium, and that hadn't happened in Capricorn in 500 years. And 500 years prior to that, it was exactly when Martin Luther was breaking away from the Catholic Church. So that is how we began this decade, and now we're in the middle of it. And everything's truly coming to a head now. And this is very inspiring because it's a celebration of relinquishing old ways and patterns and celebrating new beginnings by consciously focusing on the frequencies that you want to align with. So give thanks for the past, for helping us learn. Give thanks to your blessings. And now it's time for inspiring changes to awaken and blossom in your life. So to help you with that, help you with the whole spiritual journey, I have a free masterclass, How to Master Your Stars, the truth about taking your power back. And you can watch it all for free at spiritualmasteryclass.com. Enjoy that. It's a wonderful introduction to the secrets of spiritual mastery, the true meaning of your rising sign, the important difference between individuality and uniqueness, which is so important during the Aquarian age, your natal sun and moon's profound impact on living an abundant, happy, joyful, and free life, and how to instantly connect to spirit, and many more secret tools. So enjoy that free masterclass at spiritualmasteryclass.com. Have a beautiful week, an incredible equinox, end of the Kali Yuga cycle, Mercury retrograde, and I will see you in next week's Star Codes podcast. Lots of love.